welcome to the Alumni House podcast. My name is Matt.
I'm the Quacker.
Quacker. It is summertime, full swing, and that means the first ever episode of The Vault. Are you excited?
I'm excited.
All right. So for those of you who are wondering, which is probably everybody, what The Vault is. So what we are going to do this summer is we're going to take this opportunity when there's really no sports. I like to refer to it as the void or the abyss before we get into football season. And we're going to go back and look at a couple of different sports and just some classic games from some of those college sporting events that we love. And we've got a special one to start off in honor of LSU's 8th national championship that is hot off the press. Before we do, though, this actually came through just a minute ago. So I'm going to read this off for everybody because this is really cool. So according to ESPN, EA Sports has officially hinted at bringing back the college basketball video game. Which, hallelujah, that will be so exciting. I haven't played that since like 2003, and all it was the tournament. You couldn't even play a season. You just created a tournament, and you played your tournament. So, but we're not here to talk about basketball. So we're going to get into this. So as I said, we're going to be talking about the 1996 College World Series. So specifically the College World Series final, Miami versus LSU. Now, help me out, Quacker. Down in the boot, they have a different name for this game. Can you tell everybody what it is?
Yeah, it's just simply called the Walkoff.
Okay.
That's you say those two words, everybody at Alex Box Stadium knows exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. All right. So this is the 50th edition of the College World Series, and obviously it was played still in Omaha, but at Rosenblatt, which was, just a legendary sports venue for years and years. All right, so for those of you who are too young to remember or forgotten how college baseball used to be played, unlike today, where we have 16 four-team regionals, 8 regionals, and then 8 super regional champions move on to Omaha to play in the College World Series. There were sorry, one second. I just lost my place because, apparently even if I'm wearing my glasses, it doesn't help me. So where the 8 teams play double elimination to reach the championship series in 96, there were 8 regionals with 6 teams each. When the 8 winners got to Omaha, they played double elimination before getting to a championship game. The super regionals weren't added until 1999 when the size of the field was expanded from 48 to 64 teams. And the championship best of 3 series was put into place in 2003. Fun fact, Rice beat Stanford in 3 games to win their first and so far only CWS title. That's surprising that they only have 1. I know they're like doo-doo now, but their history, that's a little surprising. All right, so the 8 teams that made it in this 50th edition of the College World Series were Alabama. They won the South 1 regional as the number 1 seed, hosted by Alabama, and they beat Virginia 18-8 to clinch their trip to the College World Series. Florida were the winners of the East Regional as the number 1 seed, also hosted by Florida. Florida beat UMass 12-2 to get to Omaha. Wichita State were the winners of the Midwest Regional as the number 1 seed, hosted by Wichita State, and they beat Rice 16-6 in the regional final. Clemson were the winners of the Atlantic Regional as the 1 seed. Clemson was also the host, and Clemson beat Tennessee 12-5 in the regional final. Miami were the winners of the Central 1 Regional, and it was hosted by Texas, the 3 seed. Miami beat UCLA 8-4 to earn their trip to Omaha, and LSU were the winners of the South 2 Regional as the number 1 seed, and they were also the host, and they beat Georgia Tech 29-13. Yes, this is not a football score. 29-13 in the final, which set a new tournament record for most combined runs, 42, which, if you're counting, is 6 touchdowns. Just FYI.
Yeah.
Florida State were the winners of the West Regional, and as the 1 seed that was hosted by Stanford, and FSU beat Cal State Northridge 9-2 in the finale. Oklahoma State won the Central 2 Regional. They were the 3 seed, and it was hosted by the Red Raiders of Texas Tech. And Oklahoma State beat USC, who was the 1 seed, 10-2 in the regional final. Oklahoma State's participation in the CWS marked the last athletic event for the Big 8 conference, which was absorbed into the new Big 12 on July 1st, 1996. I don't guess I realized the Big 8 was still around in 96. I thought 94, 95 were the last years. So that's interesting. So, and then Miami and LSU went through the winners brackets, both undefeated, on their way to one of the most exciting games and the most exciting finishes in the history of the College World Series. Miami's closest game was their first one against Clemson, which they won by 4. They then turned around to beat Alabama 15-1, and 3 days after they beat Clemson again 14-5, which sent them to the finals. LSU had a bit of a tougher road. They beat Wichita State 9-8. Wichita State was the team LSU beat to win both of their previous CWS titles. That's a fun fact. LSU's next game was a 9-4 win over Florida, and they played Florida again 3 days later, 2-1. 2-1. Is that 2-1 or 2-1?
2-1 final score.
Okay. To earn their way to the championship game. And then the Hurricanes went 43-12 during the regular season. And Miami, who were members of the Big East at the time, played as a baseball independent. Also didn't know that. I knew they were part of the Big East. Didn't know they played as a baseball independent. They would finish the season 50-14 with a final ranking of 2. They had a team loaded with future draft picks. There were 13 players drafted during the 1996 MLB draft, including Alex Cora, and a total of 16 players off this team who would be drafted, including Pat Burrell. When postseason play started, the Hurricanes went 4-1 in the regional, and 3-1 in the College World Series. Pat Burrell, who was in his freshman season, led the country in batting average, the first freshman to do so, and he did it by over 40 points. Would win the College World Series MOP. All right, tell us about LSU, Quacker.
All right, so the LSU Tigers went 43-13 during the regular season and went 20-10 during SEC play to become the SEC regular season champs. And during the SEC tournament, LSU went 1-2, beating Tennessee before losing to Florida and Kentucky to be eliminated. In regional play, 4-0, and in the CWS, they would again go 4-0, finishing the season 52-15. Of course, the final ranking of 1 and the national champions. The Tigers were a deep team, having 8 players drafted in 96 MLB draft and 21 players drafted overall off the 96 team. And then I can keep going here because this is still got to do with LSU here. So Warren Morris, who is the key figure of this story, missed 39 games during the season after having surgery to repair a handmade bone injury, which is there was a bone in your wrist. It cracked it, and it happened during preseason, and it went undiagnosed. It resurfaced. It was misdiagnosed again, and they finally figured out that he had a broken bone. So he had surgery. It wouldn't return to the lineup until regionals, where he batted 9th. It was essentially just a bunter because he had no power to swing at all. So he was just get up there and bunt. And thanks to how good this LSU team was, his bat wasn't essential to their march to Omaha and even to the title game because he didn't have to play extra games. He's able to rest his wrist more And it wasn't until batting practice on the day of the title game itself that Morse felt he could actually fully swing at 100%. Now, LSU did not lose a game on this season when Morris was in the lineup going 22-0, and that includes the national championship game.
That is pretty impressive. All right, so now let's jump into the actual game. So Miami was the visiting team, and they opened the game scoring 2 runs in the top of the first inning. The Canes loaded the bases when 4 of the first 5 batters reached base. Michael, say it for me.
DeSalle?
Okay. I didn't know if there was some fancy way of saying it. Hit a ball through the right side gap between second, where Warren Morris was playing, and first base. 2 runs scored, but DeSalle was thrown out at second, trying to turn a single into a double. The 6th batter of the inning, TR, not going to try it, starts with an M. Stuck
Marcisnik.
All right. Stuck out to the end of the inning. And then in LSU's half of the inning, they were able to get 1 base runner, but they weren't able to do anything with him. The Tigers only had 4 men come to the plate in the inning, failing to answer the Miami offense in their half of the inning, leaving Miami with a 2-0 lead after the first inning. And then as we move into the second inning, Miami put a runner on when Rick Sagasi hit a single to left center, but they weren't able to move him over, and the Tigers were able to nail a 0 on the board. And then in LSU's half of the second inning, they went down 1-2-3, Miami holding LSU off the board for a second consecutive inning. Miami held on to their lead 2-0 after 2. And so I just realized that I went out of order, Quacker, so why don't you take the next 2 for me?
All right, so in the third inning, the Canes opened up with a base hit from Gomez. Pat Burrell came to the plate, struck out, but Gomez moved to second on a steal. And when Eddie Rivera came to the plate, he hit a ball to center field for the second out of the inning. Next up to bat was DeSalle, who hit a ball to the deepest part of the infield at second, just on the outfield grass where Morris was lined up. Morris made a dive stop, jumped up, and made an incredible throw to home plate where catcher Tim Lanier caught the ball and cut down Gomez as he was trying to score from second. So Miami was held to 0 runs for a second consecutive inning, and this kind of seemed to swing the momentum in LSU's favor, because when the Tigers up to the bottom of the third, they got Lanier on via a walk, and then Morris would come up to bat to get a base knock to put runners on first and second. Next batter, Jason Williams, walked on a 10-pitch at bat to load the bases with 0 outs. Michael Corner came up and laced a line drive to right, driving in a run, but Morris was held up at third. Williams had advanced to second, but overran, ended up in a rundown, and then was thrown out in that rundown. But in his base running error, Corner moved up to second base, so they had runners on second, third with 1 out. Nathan Dunn drove in Morris on a sac fly and advanced Corner to third. And the Tigers would take the lead when Eddie Furness came to the plate as the 6th batter of the inning, driving a hit back up the middle, in the process setting the conference and school record for RBIs in the season with 103 on the season, passing former LSU great Todd Walker. Anytime you can pass a Hall of Famer like Todd Walker, you're doing something. The Canes would finally get out of the inning on the next batter when Chad Cooley came to the plate and flew out. This is the first time Miami had trailed in the postseason since opening game of regional play, when Sam Houston State, which was their only loss of the season, only loss of the postseason to that point. Now, at the top of the 4th inning, Miami was able to get runners on the corners with 2 outs, but were unable to push a run across. This was the third straight inning where Miami was held scoreless by the Tigers defense. Unfortunately for the Tigers, they weren't able to do anything either. They had back-to-back strikeouts before the catcher, Tim Lanier, got a base hit and a steal. Warren Morris came back up to the plate and struck out. So after 4, LSU still led 3-2.
All right, so sorry about that. Got distracted by technology. All right, so moving to the 5th inning, Miami opened up with a single from Gomez. He moved over on a fielder's choice from Burrell for the first out. The next batter, Rivero, moved him over with a line drive to right, putting runners on the corners with 1 out. A sac fly from DeSalle tied. I just thought of Futurama. Tied the game up at 3. Mercisnik, I think that's right.
It.
Okay. Bounced. See, Quacker keeps giving me the hard names, is what it is, or bounced one past the shortstop to put runners on at first and second, and Alex Cora came up to bat next and hit a deep shot to left where Chad Cooley misplayed the ball, but recovered to make a diving catch only for the ball to roll out as he was lifting his glove up. What a heartbreak. So the runners on base scored from second and first, and Cora ended up at third with a triple. Miami took a 5-3 lead. LSU would get out of the inning in the next at bat without any further damage. And then in the bottom half of the 5th, LSU would have some traffic on the base path, but they made some base running errors to keep that kept them off the scoreboard. The inning would end with Miami leading 5-3 after 5. And then as we move to the top of the 6th, the Canes got their first 3 batters on with bunts. That is so frustrating. Loading the bases for their best player, Pat Burrell. Pat Burrell came up to the plate with the bases loaded and hit a would-be grand slam, but the 17-mile-an-hour wind knocked the ball down. Center fielder Michael Corner caught the ball for a sac fly as Miami added onto their lead 6-3. The next batter, Rivero, hit another sac fly to center field, driving in another run. The Canes leading 7-3 at this point. After a pitching change, the Tigers finally got out of the inning with a ground out to first. And then finally in the Tigers half of the 6th, they opened up with 2 consecutive outs before Justin Bowles was able to get on base with a 2-out double, but nothing came of it as Lanier grounded out to end the inning. After 6, Miami leads 7-3, and it was not looking good for the Tigers.
All right, now in the top of the 7th, Miami's first 2 batters went down before Seguis hit a double past Eddie Furness up the first baseline. I mean, he just snuck in just past his glove. And then I lost my place. The next batter, the next batter, Gregorio would bounce out to end the inning. So for the first time since the 4th inning, the Tigers were able to keep Miami off the scoreboard. Now in the bottom of the 7th inning, Morse would lead off with a double to center, and then Morse would move up to third on a fielder's choice when Williams was thrown out at first. Now Corner went down on strikes, and the Tigers were starting to run out of outs. Morse would score when the 4th batter of the inning done reached on an error. LSU cuts the lead 7-4. Eddie Furness came to the plate, hit a screamer down the left field line that scored Dunn from first after a bobble and a throwing error from right field from Rivero. LSU was back within 2, 7-5. Chad Cooley came to the plate and moved Furness over to second with a line drive to left. But that would be all the action for the Tigers as they would get out their 3rd out of the inning when Brad Wilson came up and struck out, leaving Cooley and Furness standing on base. In the top of the 8th, the Canes went down 1-2-3 for the first time all game. This is a huge moment for the Tigers as it kept them within striking distance. In the bottom of the 8th, LSU opened up with a base hit from Bowles and a walk from Lanier. Warren Morris came to the plate with a chance to take the lead with the swing of a bat. Instead, Morris did what he's basically been doing since he returned to lineup. He laid down a bunt back to the pitcher, who could not get the out at third. So LSU now had a base loaded with 0 outs in the bottom of the 8th. After having been down 4 runs, they're now just 1 base hit away from taking the lead. Jason Williams hit one back to the third baseman, who threw Bowles out at home. So the Tigers still had the bases loaded, but now they had 1 out. A sac fly from Michael Corner drove in a run, cutting the Tigers' deficit to 1 at 7-6. The Tigers would tie it up on the next pitch when a line drive back at the middle by Dunn, and Warren Morris would score from second. It was 7-7. LSU had a chance to add on as a block pitch in the dirt squirted away from the Miami catcher and allowed LSU base runners to move to second and third. Miami decided to intentionally walk Eddie Furness, who was Conference Player of the Year. A lot of times that's a good decision. They decided they were going to face Chad Cooley, who would finish his career at LSU in the top 10 in career doubles, triples, RBIs, total bases, and steals. He's also a pretty decent power hitter, hitting 35 dingers in his career. It's a bold move, how to work out. In this instance, it was a good decision for the Canes as he popped out the end of the inning. So now we get to the top of the 9th. Miami's first 2 batters went 2 up, 2 down. Things that turned for the Canes, and they were 1 out away from LSU needing just 1 run to complete their comeback and win the national championship. Marcisnik wasn't ready to see another team dogpile at the end of the game, so he came up and hit a double that ended up in the left field corner. And Alex Cora came up to bat and hit a double that drove Marcisnik in from second on a wide throw from the Cooley out and left. The next batter, Seguis, flied out to end the inning, or in their half of the inning, with the Canes leading 9-8. I'm sorry, 8-7. Now LSU would open up the bottom of the 9th with Brad Wilson coming to the plate. He laced a double down past the third baseman on the first pitch you saw. Next batter for the Tigers, Bowles, would move Wilson over to third on a fielder's choice to the first baseman, who made a great play to stab the ball and recover to get to first base before the batter. The next batter, Tim Lanier, the number 8 in the lineup, came up to bat and would strike out, putting Morris up to bat. As Lanier was walking back to the dugout, he told Morris, "Hey man, pick me up." So Morris stepped into the left-handed batter's box. He swung at the first pitch he saw. He golfed it out into the right field stands, just barely cleared the fence for a walk-off home run, giving LSU the 9-8 victory. Morris was carried off on the shoulders of his teammates as the most dramatic ending in national championship game won LSU the national championship. LSU won their 3rd national championship in program history. It's also their 3rd championship of the 90s.
So we're, as you can see here, we're just looking at some of these shots of the game. So why don't you, while we're cycling through these, why don't you tell us about the quote from Corey Knapp?
All right, so Corey Knapp from NCAA.com wrote, "The moment would have been iconic within any context, especially because in the history of the CWS, it is the only time a walk-off home run has clinched a championship. But with every piece of information about the game and about Morris' season, whether you're learning it for the first time or refreshing your memory for the 100th time, the moment grows in lore." And that's the end quote. This is the only time still that there's been a walk-off home run to ever end a CWS championship game.
Yeah,
that's incredible to think about.
Yeah, and there's a little bit more we have to say, but I just, while I'm thinking about it, there is an incredible 30 for 30 on this that if you have ESPN Plus, you should check out because it goes through the whole game and sort of sets up sets everything up. So, all right, so I mean, so Let's talk a little bit about legacy. LSU just won a national championship in baseball. We talked about that. We talked about maybe this wasn't their best national championship team, but they've won 8 championships. In how many years did we determine it was?
35.
35. Which is easily the most in that time period. So where does this one rank in terms of in the pantheon of college baseball lore? Not just LSU, but college baseball lore.
I would say it's probably the greatest game to ever have been played in a championship game, especially a winner-take-all game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've had some good games. You've had some blowouts. But for it to come down to a single moment like that, and to create a legend, I mean, Warren Morris was already a fan favorite. And with this one swing, he became a forever legend of the Tiger program. I mean, kids that are, 5, 6, 7 years old know who he is because their parents still talk about it. They still show them the clips from that game, so like, you'll see it in that SEC story or 30, whatever it was.
Yeah, maybe it was an SEC story. They're all the same to me. ESPN documentary.
Yeah, but they show him like at a game, and little kids are coming up to him, taking pictures with him and stuff. I mean, he is that iconic player because of this one moment. I mean, it kind of set LSU from, the third, gave them that dynasty feel, and of course they just have continued to win them over the years.
Yeah.
And it sets them apart because of what it did for the program.
Yeah, well, I think too, and for our generation, some of the more iconic baseball moments as a whole, and I'm going to include pro in this too, is the Jay Bell scoring the winning run in Game 7 to beat the Yankees in I think it was the 2000 World Series with the Diamondbacks, which was a huge upset, and it was a big deal. Seeing the Red Sox come back from 3 down to be the only team to win a series down 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have this, right? And the reason I included those is because in terms of baseball, it's kind of like you said, like I'm sure there have been games that may have been like better or more competitive, but not with these stakes, in college baseball. And that's sort of the thing that I think makes this one really special is that that this, like, what was at stake in this game, what it meant to everybody, how it played out. And that's certainly one of those moments, that will live on forever. And my hope is that more people will go and watch this because obviously fewer people watch college baseball than either of the other 2 major men's sports. But if you're looking for a way to pique your interest in it, go watch this one. Go watch this one. Watch the whole broadcast with the whole setup because that's, when you understand the context, and that's why we took our time to go through kind of the season brief and everything like that, because when you understand the context and the stakes, it's a little different than just saying, hey, so-and-so hit a walk-off to win a game, but when you actually understand its place in history, that's pretty special. So did you have any other thoughts on this one?
Well, there's a quote that I came across, and I love this because it kind of encapsulates Warren Morris's place in LSU history. It's, heroes get remembered, but legends never die. And I mean, you think about some of the legends of baseball: Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Mickey Mantle, Ted Williams, right? I mean, these guys are all like giants of the game, and their stories are still known. Yeah,
He will be
well on his way. Yes.
Yeah.
you know, and these guys have cemented themselves as a legend of the game. And in the college game, it would be hard to say that he's not a legend especially of the LSU program for what he did.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been very easy to hang it up for the season with an injury like that, but he decided to come back and do what he could at the plate, and he's still fielding very well. He can still throw, but I
think one of the problems with being a quote unquote legend for a program like LSU, and you kind of see this with Saban's Alabama, there are so many like GOAT status players who play for the program,
right?
That it's like, where do you draw the line between like elite of the elite and legend? And I think moments like this are kind of what give you that, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I think when you look back at greatest college pitchers of all time, you put Skeens there, but I don't know that you make Skeens a legend at LSU. I mean, the thing is, he didn't, he just did what he did, right?
Yeah.
But I think that that's only true because he was wearing the cleats and walking on the clay that people before him kind of paved the way for, and that says something when you're talking about a guy with the caliber of Paul Skeens, right?
Yeah.
But so when you're talking about this, I think it's moments like this that create legend status. It's like,
yeah.
It's the perseverance. It's understanding the moment. It's capitalizing on the moment, and that's just really cool to see. So,
yeah, I mean, because if it had not been for this moment, I mean, if they had won the game without him being the one to hit the walk-off, like people would know that he's on the team, and they might know his story, but it wouldn't be the same, and he wouldn't be considered like a greatest of all time for. Like his play like he was a good player,
and he got drafted. Fans would remember him, but
yeah.
But let me ask you a question: how many players can you name from the Ole Miss national championship team?
Maybe 2 or 3.
All right, how about the Mississippi State national championship team?
I couldn't tell you one.
How about the 2017 Florida national championship team?
I can see a couple faces, but I can't remember names. No,
that's my point. It's like maybe LSU fans remember him if this doesn't happen, but when this happens, it transcends that, right? And I'm not disparaging any of these other teams. I'm just saying baseball doesn't get covered the way basketball and football does. So if you are not specifically a fan of a said team, you're not going to remember these players unless they do something worth remembering.
Right.
So that's really cool. That's really cool. What a way to start the Vault series. Now look, we are not just going to do baseball. In fact, I don't even know if we're going to do another baseball game. We might. But we wanted to start with this one for a number of reasons. It's at the top of the pantheon of just great college baseball moments. The college baseball season just ended. LSU obviously just won it. There are just a myriad of reasons to start off with this one, but we hope you'll join us throughout the month as we navigate through the abyss and make our way into the proper preseason fall camp time. So, but hey, just everybody, just stay positive, all right? The All-Star break is 2 weeks away. As a matter of fact, it is 2 weeks and 2 days from today. I think it's July 15th, if I'm not mistaken. So, and today is June 30th. So we are getting ever closer. You know what else happens on July 15th? Do you know, Quacker?
I don't.
I'll give you a hint. 2 of my milestones are occurring simultaneously. The All-Star break and SEC Media Days are the same week this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak. All right. So where can people find the show? Where can people find you?
You can find the show on Facebook at Alumni House Podcast. You can find us on X, Alumni House Pod. You can find our audio-only versions on Pick a streaming service because we're on there. And you can find us on YouTube. You can find me on X at Muddy Quacker.
All right, and you can find me at MattheWWWBROWN. That's Matthew with 2 extra W's. Brown like the color on X. Thank you guys for joining us for episode 1 of The Vault. We will see you guys next time.